Alright guys, the next movie came out in theaters, so went on down to see it, and yeah, this one's a video game movie adaptation, so let's try our best. Need for Speed. So, Need for Speed is a film based off of the hit video game series called Need for Speed, obviously. And Need for Speed, for those of you who don't know, is a game where essentially it's cops versus cars, or cars versus cars. It's a racing game with a little bit more violence than most racing games. So, you know, it's a very simple premise, and we then have to translate that into a 2-hour and I believe 4-minute film. I've played the Need for Speed games. My favorite by far is Need for Speed Hot Pursuit. So when I found out that they were doing this, I was like, that's weird, but, you know, I'll give it a shot. Why not? And so my initial thoughts were, I walked into the film and I didn't really have any preconceived notions, so watching it, I was a little bored. For a movie about high-octane car racing that is running from the cops while they're racing, and fancy schmancy cars that make that sound, and the people, like the cops with helicopters, and you think you wouldn't be bored by that. Within the first 15 minutes of the movie, I was like, alright, this is a little bland. I mean, the filmmaking, it looked like they took rejected B-roll from Real Steel and put it in this movie for the beginning, and then all of a sudden we have our characters. And you know, our characters are not much of anything. Aaron Paul's in this movie, so Jesse Pinkman is in here. And you know, you're like, yes! And he was the best actor in the movie, and I'm like, I'm glad I could see him carry a role in a movie, but yeah, he didn't have much to go on for this. So seeing him in this lucrative, amazing world of Breaking Bad, you now have this wonderfully beige storyline. I mean, this film is predictable from the start. I mean, you're sitting there going, this is going to be a comeback from nothing story, isn't it? Wait for it, wait for it. Yeah, they did it. They did it. Oh, and only 15 minutes in. It's bad. When I first walked out of the movie, I was like, I had fun, I suppose, with the mindless entertainment. Because I would be lying if I didn't say, you know, some of the car chase scenes were cool. Because when they're going, like, I think it was somewhere around 200 miles an hour, and you see a car flipping and then smashing into another car, like, mid-air, and they're, like, spinning around type thing, and it looks all practical, you just sit there and go, I'm having fun with this. I enjoyed watching that. So it had some eye candy. The girl in it, Imogen Poots, I'm sorry if I royally butchered your name, she was not good. She was the annoying sidekick, but she did have a couple moments where I started to like her. But she was pretty much there to just be like, hi, I'm the forced love interest in this story. I don't want you here, but I have a feeling I might love you later. Oh, thank you. I'm going to have witty remarks every so often. That's really, and then there are literally spots you go, okay, this random supposed surprise moment is going to happen in 3, 2, 1, boop, oh, called it. And guys, you have to think, rounds of Need for Speed, the video game, last maybe 7 minutes long, alright? And that is all it is. It is cars, race each other, great. It's fun. The video game is fun. But you sit down, you have your controller, you're sitting there going, alright, next game. Race, boom, done. Because you're playing it. This is 2 hours and 4 minutes long of basically really, really cut and dry beige storytelling, and then a couple comedic moments intermixed with what would be, I would assume, the game. There was really only one segment at the very end that was the video game segment that was totally based off of the video games. That was cool. But it's literally a proving your innocence story and a come back from nothing story, and it's so bland. It was fun in that really mindless way. But I mean, there were so many plot points that you sit there and go, well, that was unnecessary. And in a movie called Need for Speed, based off a video game, I found myself questioning physics. I shouldn't be doing that in a car movie. But they don't ever establish like a real set physics for this movie, because there's times where something would totally just kill them, and they live, or there would be times that something would totally not kill them and it would just overreact to the most uncomfortable degree. I don't know how many cars flipped about 700 times in this movie, and you sat there going, but they wouldn't do that. And then, the main hero's car, of course, gets hit way worse, and it's like, oh, thank God I'm the best driver in the world that I can dodge that. Oh, I only got hit at about 800,000 miles an hour by a fighter jet, but I'm a good driver. Those kinds of moments that you're just going, what? Oh, God. But as I said, I'm trying to look at the positives of this film, and the positives are that last 15 minutes, which really was straight out of Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, which happens to be my favorite Need for Speed game. But if you are a die-hard Need for Speed fan, and you go into this film, I can basically promise you're going to hate it, because it's not Need for Speed. It is generic car movie with a video game title on it to make more money. I mean, this is literally a cash grab. It's fun if you look at the cars and just go, alright, I'm watching cars drive. Because honestly, the action scenes were well filmed in terms of that. But there was one action scene with dune buggies. I'm not going to spoil it in case you do feel like going to see this film. There was an action scene with dune buggies. It was so stupid. There was no purpose to that action scene in there. You could have cut that whole action scene out and the movie would have probably been a little bit better paced. Because you're sitting there and you're going, where is this coming from? Because they never explain anything to you. There are literally plot points that you go, well, actually, they would be able to do that. Because there is a man who's like, oh, I am like the all-powerful puppet master. He's not a bad guy, he's just there. And he's like, I'm the all-powerful puppet master type guy of this movie. And they're like, oh, no one knows who he is, blah, 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 blah. He's on a web stream talking about himself in cars. If anybody happened to be watching that, don't you think that somebody would have found him already? Yeah, no. It's ridiculous. I mean, the movie is absurd. The movie is bland. And I had fun in terms of watching the cars, because the way that the camera swoops around the cars, and it's not shaky cam, so you're not like having cars drive up, and it's like, wah, 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 and you feel like you're on one of those swings. It actually, the camera frames it well. When you're inside the cars, you feel like you're inside the car with the drivers. They had a couple first-person segments in there. That was weird. And those were kind of annoying, but some of the car technology, they contradict themselves with plot holes in the same sentence. They dig themselves a rut when they already just established, the thing, right? So they're like, oh, here's the thing. But as they're saying that, they're contradicting themselves in the next sentence and going, well, now no one's going to care about this part of the movie. Congratulations. I mean, I know I'm sounding like I'm ripping it apart, but really I'm just venting to you guys, because this movie was a disappointment because it was long, it was boring, how am I bored in Need for Speed? I love Need for Speed. I was bored, and I guess this just shows, right now, video game movies just aren't ripe yet. We're not ready for more video game movies. I do have faith in some coming out in the future. Assassin's Creed don't suck. This one is just par for the course. I could tell you this. It is the best video game to movie adaptation in the sense that it's played so safe and blandly you can barely tell it's based off the video game anyway. It just comes off as generic car movie. But if you're looking for, like, the next Fast and the Furious, it's not here. So guys, my final score on this, because Aaron Paul was actually really good in the movie with what he had to work with, my final score has got to be a 55%, because it wasn't so bad. The action set pieces and Aaron Paul saved it for me, basically.